This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
It looks like one of those scenes of an old building being purposely dynamited and blown.
When we are successful,
I'm just a patsy,
and we will be.
We're ready to to come to the microphone, so we'll listen up.
A new world order.
My name's Robbie Parker.
It might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m.
Live from the Media Broadcasting Center.
This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, where the news has been dominated by Donald Trump and his triumph in Nevada. We have the final tally with 99% of the precincts reporting on the very first slide. Donald Trump with 45.9%, Marco Rubio 23.9%, Ted Cruz 21.4%, John Kasich 4.8%, Ben Carson 3.9%. This is a record turnout in Nevada, and it seems to have been motivated by anger. I have a report here that I think makes a lot of sense, suggesting that Nevada Republicans are mad at the government. This may not be much as a surprise, but the voters don't want a politician to address that anger. 6 in 10 Nevada Republicans said they were looking for the next president to be someone from outside politics. That's 6 in 10 of a huge turnout. 70% of them voted for Donald Trump. Now, Bernie Sanders has been looking at poll results about how he and Hillary would fare in a race against Donald at this point in time. And his assessment of the Huffington Post average of recent polls has Sanders 51 to Trump 41. That's a 10-point spread. Hillary 48 to 44. That's only 4. So therefore, Bernie is making the argument he's a better candidate to take on Trump. I'm very pleased to say this evening that I have an avid student of Donald Trump, Rick Shaddock, who runs the Association for 9/11 Truth Awareness in Washington, D.C., where Rick has been a student of Donald Trump and has a great deal to share with us this evening. Rick, welcome to The Real Deal.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm with the Association for 9/11 Truth Awareness at 1629 K Street in Washington, D.C. As far as being a student of Donald Trump, I did take some online courses in real estate, which have been very helpful and then enabled me to purchase homes in both Washington, D.C. and Fairfield, Iowa, which has come in very handy. Being able to do lobbying activities in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill for 9/11 and other good causes, such as delivering the petition for a new investigation along with Richard Gage and architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth volunteers. And then in Iowa, to be able to visit the candidates, and I was able to see Donald Trump 8 times, shake his hand 5 times, give him materials to sign 6 times.
Yes, and when I use the term student, I mean it in a broad sense that you're following Donald Trump, you're analyzing what he's doing, you're watching his behavior closely, and I think you have a lot to share with us, Rick. We can begin with your slide set when you're ready.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this will cover 10 tips for truthers talking to Trump, based on my experiences. We'll talk a bit about the 9/11 debate coming up and the Hirsch Index.
For a little background, I spoke on The Real Deal in 2012 on critical thinking, open-mindedness, and TM. We had an event about Sandy Hook when, Dr. Fetzer, you spoke to our Fairfield, Iowa Truth Awareness Society via Skype. More about my research interests is at shaddockresearch.org. I'd like to give a little plug for TM because it helped me so much in my life. I became more motivated, started getting A's in school, achieved the merit badges to be an Eagle Scout, qualified for a selective university and for Mensa, the High IQ Society, and although I didn't see action or do much, an honorable discharge from the U.S. Marine Corps, all thanks to...
You're talking about transcendental meditation.
Yes, that's right. I have a Master of Arts in Education from Maharishi University. I've been a computer consultant in Washington, D.C., and director of the Association for 9/11 Truth Awareness, lobbying Congress for a new investigation of 9/11. And I own homes in Washington, D.C. and Fairfield, Iowa, near the Group TM, about 500 people practicing twice a day, raising national consciousness from near the population center of the USA, spreading out brainwave coherence, and making Americans more receptive to the truth. And we see that with the rise of consciousness, the public doesn't want what they've been getting. And it's surprised everybody. Nobody predicted last year that we would be in this situation where Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders for the Democrats are, leading in many of the polls. So I visited Donald Trump rallies 8 times and Donald Trump Jr. 2 times as they campaigned in Iowa. And we'll cover some top 10 tips. And I'm also an organizer of the annual 9/11 physics debate. Okay, so on the next slide, I was just an average high school student. I learned TM. It helped me become an Eagle Scout, Monroe County tumbling champion. It seemed just easy to do, backflips, and easier to do. My SAT scores went up. I got into Mensa, which is High IQ Society, for whatever that's worth. Colgate University, a competitive college that my parents and my older brother never thought I would get in. He didn't get accepted to Colgate, but I did. And honorable discharge from the U.S. Marine Corps, Master of Arts in Education. My thesis was on critical thinking ability and EEG coherence. TM helps to improve the coordination between the left and right cerebral hemispheres. I spoke on The Real Deal in December 2012 on that topic, and the Real Deal episode in December 2015 covered the Sandy Hook hoax. And thank you, Dr. Fetzer, for talking to our group. I was on the Kevin Barrett's show a few times and Andrew Steele's 9/11 Freefall show. I'm working on a master's degree in digital currency. That's like Bitcoin from remote, the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. And my goals are to achieve a PhD and get a Hirsch index of 10. And these are some of the diplomas. Okay, now in Washington, D.C., worked as a computer consultant for World Bank, USAID, embassies. I worked as a defense contractor for the Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Taught over 1,000 staff at the Pentagon at their training center. I worked on a several-year contract for the NSA as a programmer and for NASA for a procurement tracking system, and that was through a company, Computer Sciences Corporation. Now, after the Iraq and Afghanistan wars in 2003, many contractors were overbilling the government. It was quite a heyday in those years. And YouTube started in 2005, and I saw Loose Change by Dylan Avery on YouTube, and I was in denial for a while, but finally realized about 2006 that 9/11 was a hoax.
Well, really a false flag that was blamed on parties other than those who were actually responsible, that it was an inside job.
Yeah, exactly.
The reasons I became skeptical of the official Bush story of 9/11, the BS 9/11, are: 1. The pilots of the 4 jets all had military hand-to-hand combat training, mace, and locked the cockpit doors, so 4 groups of short hijackers could not get in. 2. While working as a defense contractor, I learned of Boeing's patented remote control takeover technology, in confidential development for decades, then publicly patented about a year after 9/11 and announced on mainstream news. It would take back control of a hijacked plane, then land it at an airport with a SWAT team ready to arrest them. This same technology could take over control from the official pilots, then steer them into buildings. Remote control explains all the speed, accuracy, flight path, crash debris, DNA evidence, and witness testimonies better than the official story. 3. The collapse of the World Trade Center, especially Building 7, not hit by a plane, looks like a controlled demolition. PhDs in physics say that by Newton's third law of equal and opposite reaction, The top 10 floors should have collapsed the next 10 or so floors, then slowed down due to the resistance of steel and concrete supports. But the floors kept collapsing at the speed of gravity all the way to the ground. It would take an explosive force to propel 6-ton beams 60 miles an hour for 600 feet into the American Express building. 4. Ace Elevator Company, a small company with no experience, got the service contract away from huge Otis Elevator Company, was working in the shafts for 7 years, the perfect place to plant explosives, yet never investigated. 5. Larry Silverstein bought the landlord rights to the World Trade Center from the New York Port Authority a few months before 9/11, then took out a huge $4.2 billion insurance policy. The towers had illegal cancer-causing asbestos insulation and had to come down anyway. It was not even investigated by Bush's 9/11 Commission. 6. I worked as a contractor at the Pentagon, which has anti-aircraft defenses. Why weren't they used? 7. Over 30 scientific studies published in independent scholarly journals question the Bush story of 9/11. For example, thermitic explosive residue was found in the dust of the World Trade Center and published in the Bentham Chemistry and Physics Journal. 8. During transcendental meditation, we experience that we are all one cosmic self in perfect friendliness. Enemies are created as an illusion at grosser levels of life. We need to investigate if 9/11 was a psyop designed to blame innocent Muslims, to justify the invasions for oil companies, and justify huge budgets for the military-industrial complex.
So as a U.S. citizen and Eagle Scout, I want to be on the good guy team. So I moved back to Iowa, got back into regular TM to improve brainwave coherence, and it helped to develop helps to develop cosmic consciousness, the realization that we're all one universal self. And the people in Afghanistan and Iraq are other like little selfies, part of our big self. A professor at Maharishi University, Dr. Jonathan Scher, wrote a paper about how TM fulfills the description of Plato's dialectic, that is turning the mind in the opposite direction, inwards instead of outwards towards the senses, and develops neuroplasticity, the ability to change one's mind. So there's actually a physiological component to how stubborn people are. Some people, if they don't have a lot of neuroplasticity, with all the evidence, they still can't change their mind. We've encountered some people like that. And helps us to act in accord with natural law. So the illustrations here, that's Plato and his academy, and Maharishi, who brought TM to the West. That's the Golden Dome, where hundreds of people practice. There's also a ladies' dome. This is Jonathan Scher and the study that he published in the Journal of Metaphysiology, Philosophy. You would be an interesting guest sometime on your show, Dr. Fetzer. I like TM because it's the only meditation that has real scientific research. That means peer-reviewed studies. Over 600 studies published in peer-reviewed journals. There are a lot of forms of meditation, but with anecdotal, support. But I like for something with scientific research behind it. And over 20 million funded by the very conservative NIH. They wouldn't fund something like meditation unless it was really something good, because they would get objections from taxpayers who
would say that why are you funding something so outlandish as meditation?
In 1972, American Journal of Physiology published an article, A Wakeful Hypometabolic State. So hypo means it's slowing down the physiology, yet we're still awake, which is the description of restful alertness. So Dr. Herbert Benson of Harvard Medical School and Dr. Robert Keith Wallace published that study. And since then, there have been many studies. I also like how TM attracts very top scientists, such as Dr. John Hagelin, PhD in physics from Harvard, and also his bachelor's degree from Dartmouth. He finished in 3 years, and so instead of 4, that's pretty good. And he was summa cum laude. So he's not only the smartest one in his class, he was the smartest person in his class of people a year older than him.
Super smart.
And is talking about the unified field and how it relates to consciousness. Okay, so TM has been found to improve grade point average and IQ, reducing stress and drug abuse by improving the coherence of the electrical activity between the left and right cerebral hemispheres, and also developing unused areas of the brain, improving blood flow to different areas of the brain. And it also helps people get off drugs. And as for me, I haven't had any desire for drugs. There's a natural high that we all can achieve, which is much better than any high that we would get through drugs. So the TM, it kind of is a bit of an avenue that I had with the Trumps, to be able to talk to Donald Trump Jr. at more length. TM has a lot of celebrities following it. Of course, the Beatles went to learn TM in India with Maharishi. Clint Eastwood was on Merv Griffin. That's what sold me. Clint Eastwood was my inspiration. Joe Namath, Oprah Winfrey, Jim Carrey, the comedian, Jerry Seinfeld, Ellen DeGeneres, Cameron Diaz, Hugh Jackman, Jennifer Aniston, Dr. Deepak Chopra, even Howard Stern, and David Lynch are speaking out on behalf of TM. And Dr. John Hagelin also ran for president in 2000 with the Natural Law Party, and I ran for Congress. So one of the platforms was to bring this rehabilitative technique to prisons, to rehabilitate prisoners and to improve students' performance. Also, Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka do TM, and Ivanka wrote in on her blog that it's one of the most important things she does every day, and she offers this as an employee benefit to her staff to improve productivity.
Another billionaire businesswoman, Oprah Winfrey, does TM, offers classes to her staff, flew into Fairfield, meditated in the Golden Dome, and did a TV special on children who do TM at Maharishi School before their classes. Oprah talked with Dr. Richard Beale, the principal, about the awards that the students are winning in the arts, sciences, and sports.
Jim Carrey!
Jim Carrey received an honorary doctorate in fine arts and gave a funny yet wise graduation speech.
Elated and truly excited to be present and fully connected to you at this important moment. You are ready and able to do beautiful things in this world. And after you walk through those doors today, you will only ever have two choices: love or fear. Choose love, and don't ever let fear turn you against your playful heart. Thank you so much. Thank you, Udell. I'm so honored.
George Lucas learned TM. Maharishi was the inspiration for the Star Wars character Yoda, and Unified Field Be With You for the Force. Actor Stephen Collins practices TM and comes to Fairfield for refresher courses from sometimes stressful Hollywood. In the first Star Trek movie, he played Captain Decker, who commanded the Enterprise after Captain Kirk, and merged with an alien being to become at one with the universe. Maharishi's description of cosmic consciousness, which is inwardly flashy but not so outwardly flashy for dramatic effect in the movie, yet is an awesome experience we all can attain through regular practice of TM and live a universal existence in harmony with nature.
Veterans may be interested. Know that TM has been found to improve alertness and reaction time, and that's why there's a group of scientists who are bringing it to the military. It also, when practiced in groups, helps to disallow the starts of enemies by enlivening the field of peace, the unified field. that of consciousness that connects all of our minds together at a very deep level. Dr. David Leffler has written hundreds of articles published in various newspapers and journals around the world. He's the head of the Center for Advanced Military Science. The website there is strongmilitary.org. And David Lynch has a foundation for helping veterans with post-traumatic stress syndrome to recover, called OperationWarriorWellness.org. Okay. Now, in Washington, D.C., when I came back to Iowa, it seemed to me that we really need to have an association for those who are 9/11 Truth activists. I had worked for 52 associations near K Street in Washington, D.C. There are associations from A to Z. There's one for the American Bar Association. There's Association for Zoologists, Association for all sorts of professions seeking influence with Congress. And I had been volunteering for the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, but we could also use an association for those who are not architects or engineers or pilots. There's also firefighters group. So the model that those other associations were using could be helpful for 9/11 Truth. So we have I hope to co-found the Association for 9/11 Truth Awareness, lobbying for Congress for 9/11 Truth. And a shout out also to Diane and John Michael and Ziggy, who are helped to found the association. And we also work closely with the AE 9/11 Truth and delivered petitions to every member of Congress and Senate. The petition of over 2,500 architects and engineers who want a new investigation. And we also help with websites such as 911police.org, encouraging people to go to your local police and talk to them about 9/11. You'll find they're surprisingly receptive, and it just helps to build awareness nationwide that we need a new investigation. And police are the ones who are really supposed to investigate this crime.
John Meters, retired police officer, is the director of 911police.org with
links that we have on there to our political action, and that is going to Capitol Hill, and but also approaching the FBI and other agencies to try to get a new investigation of 9/11. Now in Fairfield, I helped to found the Fairfield, Iowa Truth Awareness Society, and I suggest that people do this in their hometown. Each month we cover kind of I would say, conspiracy topic, and we can use the local public library for free, and they have a very nice big screen. For example, Dr. Kevin Barrett came to talk about his book on Charlie Hebdo, the Paris incident. We've talked about 9/11, JFK, Martin Luther King, moon landing, OJ's son, O.J. Simpson's son, and Sandy Hook. And that's at fitas.us, Fairfield, Iowa Truth Awareness Society. And we also have a Facebook channel. Okay, so it occurred to me that while watching CNN and hearing Donald Trump, that he would be a good person to approach about 9/11. He said on CNN that Bush was a liar and the war in Iraq was a disaster. He said that to Wolf Blitzer. So, wow, we don't hear too many people talk like that.
Give us your assessment. Is there a way out?
The war is a total disaster. It's a catastrophe, nothing less. It is such a shame that this took place. In fact, I gained a lot of respect for our current president's father by the fact that he had the sense not to go into Iraq. He won the war and then said, let's not go the rest of the way, and he turned out to be right. Look, the war is a total catastrophe.
Who do you blame?
And they have a civil war going on.
Who do you blame?
Well, there's only one person you can blame, and that's our current president. I mean, obviously, Rumsfeld was a disaster, and other people that are giving him advice have been a disaster. And compared to the person that takes over for Saddam Hussein, he will be considered a nice person. This guy will be the meanest, the worst guy, and he'll have one thing. He will hate America, and he'll use that to flame. You know, nobody talks about the soldiers that are coming back with no arms and no legs. And I saw at Mar-a-Lago on Mondays, I make Mar-a-Lago my club that you know about.
In Palm Beach.
I make that twice now. On a Monday, I let returning Iraqi injured soldiers come to the premises. The most beautiful people I've ever seen. But they're missing arms and legs. They're with their wives. Sometimes they're with their girlfriends. And the tears are coming down the faces of these people. I mean, the thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands. And the Iraqis that have been just maimed and killed. This war is a horrible thing. Now, President Bush says he's religious. And yet 400,000 people, the way I count it, have died. And probably millions have been badly maimed and injured. What's going on?
What do you think of some of these scandals that are unfolding in Washington right now? As we speak, the Attorney General is under fire, Alberto Gonzales. What do you make of this as an executive trying to watch an administration?
Look, everything in Washington has been a lie. Weapons of mass destruction was a total lie. It was a way of attacking Iraq, which he thought was going to be easy, and it turned out to be the exact opposite of easy. Now they're finding emails, and it's proven to be a lie. Everything's a lie. It's all a big lie.
Donald Trump has been exposing the lies from the Bush administration for over 10 years. And on Fox News in 2007, he said we're not being told the truth about 9/11.
I mean, who's worse than me when it comes to this guy?
But you are not a fan of his.
No, I'm not a fan of his. I think he's been a terrible president, perhaps the worst president in the history of this country. We're in a war that we shouldn't be in. Those people are going to have a revolution. They have a revolution right now. We shouldn't be there. We're losing lives. And by the way, they didn't knock down the World Trade Center. They didn't knock it down. Right. Check out Saudi Arabia. Go check out Saudi Arabia. Check out where the people came from. Check out other countries. But that was not, Iraq is not where the people came from. Yeah. And by the way, Iran is not where the people came from either.
Right. And the president of Iran yesterday said that the Holocaust, just a theory, not positive that really happened, and also said there needs to be some investigations to find out what really happened, what really caused 9/11.
So Dave Schlesinger, who's an MIT graduate, and avid 9/11 truth awareness proponent. He and I tried to contact Donald Trump about the high-rise safety initiative, because here's something that Donald could really get behind. Of course, the high-rises need to be safe. Also, Wayne Costi, who is a professional engineer, and of course, Richard Gage, trying to get an appointment with him. We also made a website, trumpcommission.org and .com, to be ready for Donald Trump if he'd like to redo the 9/11 commission, and this time cover all the evidence. I've tried to inspire him to inform him and expose Larry Silverstein. It would be like Trump, I would think, to want to put Trump on the top of the World Trade Center towers. If he would help to expose Larry Silverstein, who those tenants may want a new landlord, one that would not let 3,000 tenants die so he could get $4.2 billion from insurance. So, and I also I was able to get contact with Donald Trump Jr.'s secretary, LinkedIn, and I made a trip to Trump Tower, but was not able to get an appointment. So it was really hard to get to talk to Donald Trump, even before he was running for president. So then I saw that Donald Trump is visiting Iowa. And at these events, 9/11 truthers will find that you'll have a chance to shake hands and talk face-to-face to Donald Trump, maybe for a short time, maybe for a longer time. So we organized rallies through Facebook and other means, and made a website, trumpfairfield.com. We're able to see Donald Trump in Oskaloosa, Burlington, Newton, Des Moines at the Iowa State Fair, where he flew in with a helicopter and gave rides to children, Fort Dodge, Iowa City, Muscatine, and Davenport. And he would fly in with the Trump jet, which was very impressive to see at the Moline Airport. And the other presidential candidates were visiting Iowa too, since Iowa is the first to do its caucus. I was able to see and shake hands and talk to Senator Bernie Sanders in Ottumwa, Iowa. And I asked him about the 28 pages on 9/11, since he is a senator and it is his job to read those 28 pages and know about them. But he didn't really respond. You could check out the video and see if you think he really heard me or not. But I mentioned it a number of times. And
from where do you well, Senator Harkin visited Fairfield, Iowa, where they have, if on your way, take a look at this. These are the Golden Domes, where largest group meditation for peace promoting defense.
Can I tell them what the that is? Good. Thank you.
Okay. I'll send it to your office.
Okay.
On a different topic, remember the 28 pages that Bush classified about 9/11. So if you bring that out, that'll discredit Bush entirely. Senate Bill 1471. Thank you.
You all ready to make a little bit of history?
Yeah!
All right. The need to raise the minimum wage. Not to cut Social Security, but expand Social Security benefits. We need to demand that the wealthy and large corporations pay their fair share of taxes.
Thanks, everybody. Remember, Route 1, you can see the Golden Domes at Fairfield, Iowa. You're the man.
All right.
And he was also at the Iowa State Fair. So I saw him there again. And I said, Bernie, please read the 28 pages. Senate Bill 1471. Senate Bill 1471. And he kind of said, oh, yeah, okay. So I hope he does read those.
Chance to talk to Bernie Sanders. About the 28 pages the Bush classified about who funded 9/11.
At the press conference, I was able to tell Bernie about the 28 pages.
Bernie, would you support the release of the 28 pages that Bush classified about who funded
9/11? In a few minutes, over the
28 pages.org.
Poverty of any major country and almost all of the new income and wealth group is going to the top 1%. Watch it, guys. Watch it.
Okay. Oh, Bernie, that would destroy Bush. You mentioned the 28 pages. Just mention it.
He's got it.
Okay, thanks. He's covering up funding from the Saudis. Yep. Okay, good luck, Bernie.
Thank you.
28 pages.
Sliding around you, brother.
I also talked to Lindsey Graham. Now, he was very easy to talk to because only about 10 people showed up at his event in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. And I asked him about the 28 pages and also made a video. And these videos, by the way, you'll find at my YouTube channel called Truth Makes Peace. You can also get there at truthmakespeace.com. It takes you right to the YouTube channel. So, well, Lindsey Graham said on the 28 pages, he said, well, I haven't read them. I mean, the senators are supposed to read these bills so they can vote on them. And on TM for defense, he said, well, I'm for anything that works.
Well, there's a Senate Bill 1471 to release the 28-page chapter that George Bush classified about who funded 9/11. This is like one of the biggest crimes, and covering up the funding of a crime is a crime. It's obstruction of justice. It's harboring terrorism. Do you support the release of these pages?
Really, I could let me look at it. You're the second person to ask me, and I hadn't even seen the bill. I'll get that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, since you're in the area, and the reason I'm in Fairfield, Iowa, is to be your largest group meditation. And if you take a look at strongmilitary.org,
okay.
There are generals, and if you're familiar with General Albert Stubblebine, supporting
we'll take a look at it.
Dr. John Hagelin to create a influence of coherence, disallow the birth of an enemy. So you just drive through Fairfield, past the Golden Domes. I think it would be very helpful.
I'm for anything that helps.
Great.
Hillary Clinton came to Fairfield, Iowa.
I am very much in favor of what Secretary Vilsack is trying to do. What he's trying to do as the Secretary of Agriculture for our country is to get a labeling program started and try to get everybody at the table to agree on what we need to do here.
I also wasn't able to shake hands with Hillary Clinton, too many Democrats around. And Ted Cruz, I was able to shake hands with him and talk with him for about 10 minutes in Mount Pleasant, which is the birthplace of Dr. James Van Allen, who discovered the Van Allen belts of radiation surrounding the Earth 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles with radiation of 100 rem per hour, which would be very sickening, if not fatal. Dental X-ray only gives you 0.1 rem for about a second. But Ted Cruz, he had not heard of the Van Allen belts. Now, he's a lawyer by training, so I thought maybe I would talk to him about 9/11, but on that opportunity, I thought, well, since he's the chairman of the Senate committee overseeing NASA, he should know about the Van Allen belts. And I thought it would be too much of a stretch for him to talk about the moon landing. But another point is that NASA should be funding efforts to go to the moon for real, whether you believe it or not, because the Russians are planning to do that. And my wife, who came from Russia, she says everybody in Russia knows that the moon landings were fake. So they're happy because it gives them more time to catch up. I also was able to talk to CNN's reporter Suzanne Malveaux, who from time to time has filled in for Wolf Blitzer as an anchor. And she had not heard of the 28 pages. But I told her, whoever will cover this, could maybe get a Pulitzer Prize.
I was telling Senator Harkins was over Fairfield, Iowa, which is on his way to Burlington. I was suggesting that he take a look at these golden domes where 2,000 people meditate, which has an influence to help raise collective consciousness and provide an influence of defense. So I hope he'll stop by on his way through Fairfield.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Thank you.
I've been following the... And I also asked Bernie, had a really good chance to suggest that he sign on to Senate Bill 1471. Have you heard of that? That's
what is that one?
That's to release the 28-page chapter that George Bush classified about who funded 9/11. How could they buy airline tickets or take flight lessons or anything like that without funding? So, I hear that it may have. Well, that's what they report on Fox News, that Judge Napolitano, that it came through the Saudi government. Yeah. So if the Saudi government was financing 9/11, and 15 of the 19 hijackers from Saudi Arabia, why do we invade Afghanistan and Iraq?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Why aren't we, at least making some sanctions against Saudi Arabia that, cuts off people's heads, doesn't let women drive, So there's a lot. So Bernie Sanders, if he would, I was mentioning to him as he's getting in the car. I got a really good video of that. Just like I was standing next to you. It says signed at 1471. It'll discredit Bush. In one stroke, because Jeb Bush is kind of contributing to hiding with George Bush. I mean, covering up the financing of a crime like 9/11 is a crime. Yeah. It's obstruction of justice.
Yeah, that's right.
It's harboring terrorism, ironically. So we need to know what's in those 28 pages.
And the bill calls for that, yeah.
1471, yeah, and also there's a website about it, 28pages.org. It should be front page news.
Yeah.
And whoever makes the front page news could win a Pulitzer Prize.
And then it becomes our story, because we follow
make
the
it
front
your,
page.
make it your story. Nobody else, I can't believe anybody's not covering
Are
it.
you going back?
All right, vote for who? Bernie.
Rand Paul also visited Fairfield, Iowa, and Washington, Iowa, which is nearby. And I mentioned that in the House, they have a Resolution 14 to release the 28 pages that Bush classified about who helped fund 9/11. And Rand Paul said, yes, I'm getting ready to do that on the Senate side. And a week later, he did introduce Senate Bill 1471 about the 28 pages. So, but I was able to talk to him a bit about the Ace Elevator Company, which was working in the shafts from 1994 to 2001, and they were never even mentioned, not much less investigated by the 9/11 Commission. And Securicom, the security company, also not even mentioned in the 9/11 investigation, much less investigated. And of course, Larry Silverstein just mentioned in passing that the Silverstein Properties was the managing landlord of the World Trade Center, but never investigated, even though he got $4.2 billion, within a couple months of his becoming the landlord.
One thing, because in the House resolution they have House Resolution 14 to release the 28 pages that Bush classified.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do that on the Senate side.
That's better than no secret. They did not investigate Ace Elevator Company. It was in their shafts from 1994.
I'm not hearing you.
Oh, Ace Elevator Company was working in elevator shafts from 1994 to 9/11, and they were
never investigated, not even mentioned in the whole report.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
That wasn't a place to.
If you send me some information on that, I can get that to both Senator Paul and his
Well, if I
staff.
could just say one thing, the security company, Securicom, was not even mentioned at the 9/11 Commission. The security guards, not even mentioned. And the LVI Systems that was removing asbestos from the World Trade Center. Those towers had to come down anyway. Illegal asbestos. And why would Larry Silverstein release a building for 99 years that had asbestos in it?
Well, I think we'll take a look at it.
The following week, Senator Rand Paul introduced Senate Bill 1471 to release the 28 pages. Medical doctor Robert Schneider talked to Dr. Rand Paul about TM.
I hope you'll support the idea of integrating these natural medicine methods into the healthcare system.
Well, most of it really should be about just having the freedom to do it. It shouldn't be the federal government telling you anything about how you do it. If the government will leave you alone, then people will choose varieties of.
I really appreciate your coming out of faith.
Weeks later, Rand visited Washington, Iowa, so I thanked him for introducing Senate Bill 1471.
I'd also encourage everybody to contact your congressman. I ran into my congressman at a coffee shop, and I asked him, will you please join the other congressional representatives who have signed House Resolution 14 to declassify the 28-page chapter that George Bush classified about who helped fund 9/11. It looks like the Saudis were involved, because without funding, the attack would not have happened. So he said that's interesting. Send me information to the office, and I did, and he sent me a nice letter, but I haven't seen his name yet on the signing on to the House resolution for that. So we need politicians who will really read these bills and act on them.
And actually, I sent you an email.
What was it about? You want to go
Also
through?
support the release of the 28 pages that Bush classified about who financed 9/11.
Who financed what?
9/11. The 28 pages. That,
Yeah, tell me the 28 pages. What's it from?
Well, they're saying it's from the Intelligence Committee, and George Bush classified these pages, and it was on Fox News and New York Times that they had to do. I hope you don't mind. This is a special house.
Well, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks. And
Can we take a picture?
well,
I can
sure,
take one.
sure. Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Is that all right?
Well, who financed 9/11? Why would Bush classify those pages?
Right.
I mean, you can't have tickets and all that, but you've seen that House of Resolution. Wife, this is our congressman.
At Oskaloosa, Donald Trump gave a picnic, treating hundreds of people. Contracted a company called Hy-Vee, which gave out hot dogs, hamburgers, salad, drinks to a lot of people. Now, it's not like he's trying to buy votes, but it does show fullness and financial fullness. And it's unlike other rallies where often people are asked to make donations. So he said, I don't want anybody's money. Just enjoy today. Enjoy the food.
Grab that corn like you've never seen. So rich, so beautiful. And thank you for being here on a Saturday. I know you're going to be doing a lot of other, we have such a huge crowd. We have another room that's packed like this one. And people standing outside, I don't know if we can let them in, if we can put them up, but we have so many people standing outside. I just want to thank you. And actually the Des Moines Register is standing outside too. super liberal rag, not respected around here. But they come out with an editorial, Mr. Trump, I'm rated #1 now in every poll. Because you know what? People are tired of what's going on. Not because of me. They're tired. And they say, so you're #1 in every poll. They say, you should drop your candidacy. I say, excuse me. I mean, you know, why? But it's such an honor to be here and to discuss some of the things that have taken place over the last week. This has been a big week. First of all, Hillary is now officially under investigation for the You know, if you look at it, look, I don't think anything's going to happen to her because it's all Democrats that are doing the investigation. I mean, that's the way it is, right?
And then after the rally in the main auditorium, I wanted to talk to Donald Trump. And so I walked around a bit and saw a room. You know, I just happened to walk down the right halls. It was kind of supportive nature. And there was a press conference. And I wore a tie, as you can see, and I was better dressed than many of the reporters from the New York Times and NBC who were just wearing jeans. And so the lady at the door asked me for my press credentials. I said that oh, that's a nice blue dress you have on. And I'm with Truth Makes Peace, the news blog. So she said, okay, and she let me in. So I was able to ask Donald Trump about the 28-page chapter that George Bush classified and the WTC building attack collapse. So I'll bring in YouTube, which is queued up.
You like honest reporting. Question? Yes.
Yes, years ago you correctly identified George Bush as lying to get us into wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And there was a House and Senate resolution to release the 28 pages that George Bush classified about who funded 9/11. Now we can't have an attack without funding. Would you support the release of those 28 pages to the public?
I'd have to see it.
It's 28pages.org.
You know, I was opposed to Iraq. I'm a very militaristic person, I will tell you that. I would have a military that's so strong nobody would mess with us, but we should have never gotten into Iraq. We've created a mess. And Iran now is taking over Iraq after spending billions, trillions, $2 trillion. After spending all of that, thousands of lives, most importantly, and all of the wounded warriors who I love all over. It's something, and now what's going to happen? Iran is taking over Iraq. Stupid leadership. Stupid leadership. Okay.
Okay, so for that question, he didn't know, he had not at that point heard about the 28 pages, but and then he began speaking about how he was one of the few who was opposing the invasion of Iraq from the get-go. And then later on, he gave me another opportunity to ask a question, and this time it was about the World Trade Center collapse.
I don't think this Okay, how about two more? Go ahead.
Just as a builder of many skyscrapers, you know they're built to be strong. And many people, according to a poll, YouGov, 60% of Americans have some question about how those towers came down. And and how the World Trade Center 7 was not even hit by a plane, and companies that were not investigated, like Ace Elevator Company, they're in the shafts from 1994 to 9/11. They were never even mentioned, much less investigated by Bush's administration.
Conspiracy man right over here?
Right.
Okay.
Well, would you support an independent investigation of the way the towers came down?
I don't want to really. What do you say? Who brought down the World Trade Center?
Well, just Americans are calling for an independent investigation of people who could have.
Did you have a question, Dan?
Yes, I did.
All right, so at that point, at least I hope that I got him thinking about 9/11 and informing him on a couple topics, such as the Ace Elevator Company and the polls that show that 60% of the people have questions about 9/11. Okay, so that got written up in the New York Times blog and the Washington Post. The Examiner said, 9/11 truther stumps Trump during campaign event. And it was repeated through some other magazines, such as Mother Jones. and my local newspaper writing about my encounter with Donald Trump. So there are opportunities where people could speak with Donald Trump at a press conference, and he often has time for questions at the events. So I would say there's no need to really jump out and scream or interrupt his event, which one fella did. Which I know he means well, but I would say that there are other opportunities, and it's clear that by now Donald Trump does know that there are many suspicious things about 9/11.
We're going to win the election. We're going to beat Hillary. Hillary has done a horrible job. She's not worthy of being our president, and we're going to make this country great again.
Going to try to see Donald Trump again.
At the Newton, Iowa rally, after he spoke, he always goes down to the people in the front row and goes along and signs such as hats or signs or brochures. And so I gave him a 9/11 brochure from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. So he looked at that, and as he was signing,
Mr. Trump, please review this brochure about over 2,000 architects and engineers who question how the World Trade Center towers came down when they were built strong to withstand a plane. They want a new investigation, including Building 7, which was not even hit by a plane.
Then at another rally in Davenport, I made a paper that said Larry, Roger, and Lisa Silverstein were not in World Trade Center on 9/11. The World Trade Center had asbestos and had to come down anyway. Glassner helped Larry win the bid to get the World Trade Center. Even though Vornado Company bid more to become the managers of the World Trade Center, Larry still won the bid. And he got $4.2 billion from insurance only 6 weeks later. So as he was coming down and signing these things, he gave it back, and I think with a knowing smile and a little bit of a salute, like, right on. Yeah, I know that Larry Silverstein there's something suspicious about that.
Join me for a Trump. Larry Silverstein got $4.2 billion on a building with asbestos. Larry Silverstein. Gotta check him out. Larry Silverstein. He knew.
Wow, that was great. Certainly all the real estate developers in New York City must have wondered how Larry was so lucky on 9/11. At another event in Quad Cities, I brought a paper this time because I had seen that he's starting to talk about Bush's not keeping us safe on 9/11, but I also wanted to inform him about the TM technique and what it's doing for veterans to help those with post-traumatic stress syndrome to relax and release all that stress. And Trump said, "That's great." That's also on a video on the Truth Makes Peace channel.
David Lynch Foundation got a lot for veterans.
I can't have you. They take one of me.
It's about that Ivanka Trump organization. So you may see what's up. Quite a crowd here at the Fetzer Theater in Davenport, Iowa. Oh,
Donald.
Okay.
Can you save me from Common Core?
Common Core is a disaster. Oh, Donald, Ivanka practices TM, which has been found very good for vets. The David Lynch Foundation.org is doing incredible things with veterans and PTSD. You can do it. PTSD. Thank you.
Gave him this paper about Operation Warrior Wellness from the David Lynch Foundation. Now, Jerry Falwell Jr., who was also touring with Donald Trump, also read it. And he said, yeah, I'll make sure Donald gets that. I asked I was going to get his autograph, but he put it in his pocket. So I thought, that's great. Okay, he'll give it to Donald Trump on the Trump plane as they go back to New York.
Teaching veterans to meditate. And David, look at David Lynch Foundation.com.
I'll make sure he gets it tonight.
Oh, thanks very much. Wow, that's coming from you. That'd be great. Rick Shaddock.
What is it?
Rick from Fairfield, near the Maharishi University.
Good job. Thanks a lot. What's your name?
Well, Donald raised $6 million in one day for veteran support, and gave a big check to an organization that's helping to provide dogs to veterans to help them relax and have a companion during their recovery. And perhaps Donald will look at the scientific research behind the TM for vets and perhaps fund that effort. Donald Trump is very difficult to get in touch with by now. Hundreds and hundreds of people are trying to talk to him. And Donald Trump Jr. and his other son, Eric Trump, also were touring. Ivanka is not touring because she's very pregnant right now. And in Mount Pleasant, Donald Trump Jr. was meeting at the Pizza Ranch. And I had a chance to talk to him about 30 minutes. There were not that many people there.
Donald, I went to see your father last night, and I had him. I showed this to him in the line, and Donald Trump Jr. said, "I do TM too."
So I talked with his wife Vanessa about TM. She knows about TM, and she practices it too, and how the Maharishi school students are doing very well on their SATs, and they're winning science fairs and spelling bees, and so she really liked that. And now, women, I think, are less wanting to talk about 9/11 because it's kind of a negative subject. 3,000 people died. So when she left for more pizza, I talked with Donald Trump Jr. about 9/11 and about Sandy Hook, since he's an avid hunter and Second Amendment proponent.
Tell me about the Sandy Hook conversation.
Yeah, now that was shorter because I was first talking about 9/11, and I was able to get in that Sandy Hook is very suspicious, and you want to look into that because it seems to be a hoax designed to curtail our Second Amendment. And I said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, an investigator, Wolfgang Helbig, and a professor of logical reasoning and critical thinking, Dr. James Fetzer, find there's evidence that the school was closed in 2008, which is 4 years before the event. And now at that time, a lady wanted to have a selfie with him, and another lady wanted him to kiss her baby, and someone else wanted him to help with a sick relative. So a lot of people were trying to talk to Donald Trump Jr.
Were you able to mention nobody died at Sandy Hook?
The book.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mention the book, but we should send him one, and that would be a good follow-up. In Albia, there was another opportunity to talk to him, actually the next day, and that was in a restaurant for kind of a brunch and coffee hour. And there I had more chance to talk to him about the 28 pages that Bush classified about who funded 9/11. And again, there were a lot of people trying to ask him questions. I thought maybe I was going a little too much on the conspiracies, because he said, I'm not here to talk about conspiracies. I'm here to talk about my father running for president. So I thought, okay, I better back off. So, and I asked him, Mike, what do you think about Bitcoin? Do you have any? And he said, no, I don't. And so I got his email and sent him his first Bitcoin, digital currency, which I think will help to end the monopoly of the Fed. So here's some, just from my experiences, to offer people who are around the country as the Trumps come to their state, some top 10 tips. So look for when Trump is coming to town. Now in Iowa, the Des Moines Register had a very good website where you could click on the candidate you want to find, and it'll list all the dates and locations where he's going to be. So other newspapers probably do the same thing. Go to rallies early so you can get a seat near the front and be able to ask questions and perhaps even be on camera as you ask the questions. Preferably raise your hand and be polite. Shouting, it doesn't endear him to 9/11 Truth, and nobody likes to be interrupted. And they've heard a lot about 9/11 by now. So, and they are smart and know there's something very fishy, but you understand they can't say too much at this time about 9/11. So Donald Trump always goes down the front row, and he'll be signing hats, signs, and that's an opportunity to speak with him. And he's very nice. I heard a lady who he passed by her, and the lady said, Donald, please sign my sign. And he stopped and he went over there. And I was supposed to, man, he does have a heart. And bring something about 9/11 or the cause. Maybe Sandy Hook would be a good thing for us to focus on now for him to sign. Perhaps Dr. Fetzer's book. And, keep it simple, something he can recognize at a glance, because he has to move along and his Secret Service agents are watching every move and moving him along. Be prepared with an issue to talk to him about. Look for a press conference after the talk and, dress. I wore a tie, and I think that really helped me to get into the press conference. Watch for visits by his son, Donald and Eric, who are much more accessible. And read up on the Wikipedia links about them, to know their children's names and wife's names. Ivanka's pregnant presently, so she probably won't be campaigning for a while. I would suggest joining the Trump campaign if you are Republican and so moved, because you can get the latest news on visits that may not be in the newspaper. For example, the visits at the Pizza Ranch was not published by the Des Moines Register. That was only sent out as an alert to people who were volunteering for the Trump campaign. And remember that 9/11 was not just done by Jewish people or any particular religion. Dick Cheney's Methodist, supposedly, and Bush is Episcopalian. The Trumps have many Jewish friends, as do I. And so we don't want to blame 9/11 on just one religion. There are many beneficiaries of 9/11, such as the military-industrial complex. Well, these are some of the Iowa campaign staff that I got to know. So I would suggest if there's an issue that you want to bring to Donald Trump's attention, get to know the people who are managing your state. And I found that they're very, very nice, alert, and conscious people. There was a caucus in Iowa on February 2nd. So my Iowa home is in Jefferson County, Precinct 2. So I volunteered to get up and say a word about Donald Trump. Every candidate had 2 minutes to have someone talk on his behalf. So my precinct is also includes the campus of Maharishi University, and Trump won this area, which I would say is a very high consciousness area, with 18 votes, which is twice what Rand Paul got with 9 votes. So Trump won the most enlightened precinct in Iowa, although Ted Cruz won Iowa in general. So I guess we need to have more people, more meditators in the dome.
But don't you think that was affected by him putting out a false announcement that Ben Carson was leaving the race and that his voters should support Cruz?
Absolutely. Yeah, and there was a mailer that said this is a...
You could go back that one slide, Rick, if you don't.
Right, and about the voting violation, you open this to avoid a voting violation. I mean,
yeah, they sent out a brochure that looked official, but in fine print identified with the Cruz campaign, saying if you don't vote, you could be prosecuted.
Yeah.
That was pretty dirty. That Cruz is acquiring a reputation for that, where Rubio and Carson, as well as Trump, have all three accused him of dirty tricks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think he's willing to go along with any official story too. He's a chairman of the Senate committee overseeing NASA, and he hadn't even asked. He could ask, who's it, Charles Boulder, by the way, did we go to the moon or not? But he never did. So All right. Well, by volunteering for the Trump campaign, I was able to get software for my mobile phone and my laptop, which is called Ground Game. You know, the state-of-the-art software that could show with like a Google map with little pointers of where everybody was. I realized that I was surrounded by Democrats, and gave the party, if they're Democrat or Republican, phone number. So that assisted in making calls to get people to go to the caucus. Nice thing about the Trump campaign, I've also worked on Ron Paul's campaign in
2012,
and trying to get Ron Paul to be elected and at least respected by the GOP. When we went to the Republican National Convention in
Florida,
the GOP did not allow Dr. Ron Paul to speak, and that so angered us that we all went to a different venue to have our own presentation, own convention where Dr. Ron Paul could speak. And also, I do like Dr. Rand Paul, his son, as well, and his stance on the civil liberties. I really respect how he got up and did a filibuster to curtail the NSA spying bill. But for whatever reason, he's just wasn't able to get up in the polls, and he did drop out of the race. But in those other campaigns, they also ask for money, and Donald Trump doesn't want anybody's campaign money, and they provide campaign materials pretty liberally, hats, bumper stickers. So it's very nice. In addition to, of course, what he stands for. So that's why I like I support Donald Trump. I think that he is our best hope for 9/11 truth, and I think it's clear now. When I was talking to Dr. Kevin Barrett, he was skeptical about whether Trump would be a force for the neocons. Or I am concerned about a few things about Donald Trump. His statements about torture. Torture has been found scientifically to not work. Not only is it immoral, it's scientifically it impedes a person's ability to recall events. And we don't know when we went to college. If we were very stressed going into an exam, it's hard to remember details. So I do wish he would change his mind on that, because we don't need another Dick Cheney. It's kind of ironic because he says that the New York Times does not always tell the truth. He calls Bush a liar, the Bush administration a liar, and then he's going along with some of the things that they have said. So,
is this your last slide?
Oh, this is on the last one on the Trump campaign. There is
yeah. Yes, Rick, I think he's not a flawless candidate. I think he's head and shoulders above the others, and that he's got the potential to shake up Washington in a way it's never seen, certainly not for hundreds of years. And therefore, the establishment on both sides are very upset with Donald Trump. He's been quite emphatic about the invasion of Iraq as having been a disaster, that we've squandered $4 to $5 trillion. We would have been much better off spending it on roads and schools and education and the like. I think that's commendable. He's faulted Jeb for suggesting his brother kept us safe, which, of course, is easily demonstrable that they did not take appropriate measures to protect the nation. The deeper reason, of course, being because they were complicit in the planning for 9/11. But if you accepted the official account, it's very clear that those who were attempting to inform the administration that they ought to be aware of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, and the like, where Condoleezza Rice even had a report about Osama bin Laden determined to strike, Richard Clark, the anti-terrorism czar, and George Tenet, the director of the CIA, repeatedly sought to bring this to the attention of the administration, according to a simply brilliant article in Atlantic, which makes it very clear how, if you even if you accept the account that Bush Cheney let it happen. Of course, we know better. They actually made it happen. But on the weakest interpretation, it would turn out that they were derelict in their responsibility. And I thought it was therefore extremely commendable for Trump to call Jeb out on that. Where Jeb, of course, turned out to be a lackluster candidate. He didn't have any pizzazz. He didn't have the proper presence. He didn't come across as a leader. All areas in which Donald Trump excels, where he conveys the impression of a very strong leader who has lots of ideas and a great deal of competence. And I think the thought that he is a businessman, Rick, is very appealing to the country, that so many of these issues are economic and involve large sums of money. Well, Donald is used to dealing with large sums of money. He seems to understand trade and the economy like no other candidate.
Exactly. Yeah, and how to run a big organization. Exactly. Well, would I have time to cover a couple things that
Sure.
Debate?
Go right ahead.
How many more minutes are there? Yeah. There's a 9/11 physics debate coming up on Einstein's birthday. It's the third annual one on March 14th, 2016. Now, in 2014 and 2015, the winner by default was Dr. David Griscom, who's a PhD from physics in Brown, who's worked at the Naval Research Lab, NASA, DARPA, has 200 papers in peer-reviewed journals, and a Hirsch index of 52, which is very good. And
well, let me ask you, when you say 9/11 physics debate, are you talking about the destruction of the Twin Towers and whether it was physically possible?
Yeah,
or
the
required
resolution,
extraordinary measures?
Yeah, the statement is resolved that the collapse of the World Trade Center towers violates Newton's laws of motion, was what they were to talk. But no physicists came forward in those 2 years. And we contacted 30 universities and 2 physics societies. So we sent them several emails, and I also call each department by phone, which actually is a lot of fun because some of these physicists, they just have not been thinking about 9/11, and it feels good to be getting them to think about it because, of course, they know the Newton's laws of motion. And no PhDs in physics with a Hirsch index. Now, first we had the bar set at a Hirsch index of 50. Dr. Griscom had 52. And the next year, in 2015, we lowered it down to 40. We decided to just lower it down to 10 because we weren't getting any response. Now, none of these, I would get some emails, thank you, or, not interested in debating at this time. But you would think that they would be clamoring to defend the official story and, support their government. But no PhDs in physics seem to agree with the official story. It violates Newton's 3 laws of motion. For example, the third law of equal and opposite reaction. The top 10 floors would have collapsed the next 10 floors made of equal material, maybe 10, maybe 20 floors, but it would have been a slowing of the collapse as it loses momentum by the energy necessary to collapse the steel and concrete.
Not only that, Rick, but the steel was like 6 inches, then 5, then 4 tapered off to the top.
Right.
And a retired high school math and physics teacher has calculated that the top 14 floors of the North Tower, for example, only represented 1.4% of the mass of the steel. And the idea that 1.4% could overwhelm the lower 98.6 is simply preposterous. So, it doesn't appear to have been physically possible for the buildings to have collapsed. The safety factor was 20, according to Skilling of the firm that designed and supervised the construction. There's no way those buildings could have collapsed. They required a massive source of energy over and beyond what gravity could provide. And most certainly the fires burned neither long enough nor hot enough to cause the steel to weaken, much less melt.
Right, and by having this debate, it forces them to make a decision. What side are they on? And hopefully they will start to discuss 9/11 physics with their students. So this year's physicist is Dr. Crockett Graby, who has a PhD in physics from Caltech, and he was a guest on your show. And more information about it is at 911debate.org. And we've been advertising this debate since January, also on some of the forums, such as the former James Randi forum, to try to get someone to debate. So they talk as if they have scientists, but when they're called out and they have to come up with even one, they can't.
Rick, you have 2 minutes to remain to wrap it together.
Now, I mentioned Hirsch Index, and this for the audience. This is an index invented by Dr. Jorge Hirsch, PhD in physics from University of California, and it's an objective measure of a scholar's books and publications in peer-reviewed journals. You know, how often they're referenced, how long they're cited by other scholars favorably. And it's a very serious measurement used by universities as a factor in publish or perish, whether a faculty member gets tenure or not. So it's not something that can be faked. The Hirsch Index for scientists can be found at the University of Illinois. They have a research guides website or Google Scholar, and looked up Dr. James Fetzer. You can Google James Fetzer Google Scholar, and you have a very impressive Hirsch Index and number of citations. So congratulations, Dr. Fetzer. And it lists your publications. So you're up to like 25, I-10 index 57, and 2,274 citations. So
that's terrific, Rick, that you looked into that. I never have myself. I find it rather fascinating.
Yeah. And it really differentiates, as Dr. Griscom said in the debate. He said that he doesn't like to brag about it or tout his high Hirsch Index, but it is a score that can be used as an objective measure, because you can imagine these people on the former James Randi forum, the forum that James Randi, they disowned because there was such lack of logic and critical thinking on there.
Well, Rick, you've done a super job here. I really appreciate it. I think this has all been quite fascinating, and I'm very glad you've stepped up to the plate here to make contact with Trump and his sons.
All right. Well, just one last point, if I could. Recent news is Richard Gage presented Dr. Noam Chomsky at MIT the collected articles on 9/11, which are 22 papers published in non-truther journals as well, filling a big binder. And of course, there's also the 70 plus papers in the Journal of 9/11 Studies.org, which you do the editing for, Dr.
So this is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, thanking my very special guest this first hour, Rick Shaddock, for being here. Rick, you did a terrific job. Stand by for the new JFK show and a continuation of my response to the critique by Jim DiEugenio of Citizens for Truth about the Kennedy assassination. We'll be right back.
Moonrock Books. We're a group of scholars, experts, and authors who feel the world really needs saving, and that resisting the American empire is the right thing to do. People are starved for truth. They are given lies. They subsist on lies, but it's not really living. People are not watching TV news. They're ceasing to read newspapers too, because they know by now they will not find it there. The biggest battle being fought anywhere is with information. If the people can receive the truth, they will do the right thing. We are publishing the truth about Sandy Hook, about the Boston bombing, about the moon landings, about the Holocaust, and much, much more. The truth. It falls upon us to fight the empire and save the world. Join us, Moonrock Books.
Less than 3% of you people read books, because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. Television is not the truth. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds.
Broadcasting live on network radio.
So turn off your television sets, turn them off now, turn them off and leave them off.
We can now say, with moral certainty and considerable scientific authority, that the death of JFK was committed by a meticulously executed conspiracy which was obscured by an extensive cover-up. Murder in Dealey Plaza, edited by James Fetzer, goes to the heart of the JFK assassination. You'll read new and up-to-date information regarding the Secret Service, the Lincoln limousine, the medical evidence, the cover-up, altering the film, framing the patsy, and the silent historians. Also, 16 smoking guns, each one crushing the government's lone assassin scenario. A world-class chronology of November 22nd, 1963. Chapters by David W. Mantic, Gary Aguilar, Vincent Palomero, Douglas Weldon, Jack White, Ira David Wood III, James H. Fetzer, Doug Horn, and a classic essay by Bertrand Russell. The complete story in the pages of one single book, edited by James H. Fetzer. Read it now, read it again. You'll use it as a reference. Murder in Dealey Plaza. Available at Amazon.com and major bookstores around the world. It's murder.